Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 322. My name is Brando, and it's going to be the last episode of 2021, although the past few years feels like just one really bad day. Right, Doug?
Oh, absolutely, man.
So
Yeah.
I know it's the best way just to end the year and to end the year on a high note with you, because we talk often. I'm not going to abuse our relationship because you could be my guest every day. You have enough stories for that.
Yeah, I enjoy it, man.
Even though if you're watching on our YouTube page, even though you're wearing a St. Louis Cardinals hat, where are you
I
right
am
now?
indeed. I'm in Kansas City. Yeah. They moved me from the land of the riots to the land of the best barbecue, which it's funny. It's funny, Brando. I've lived in Houston, St. Louis, and Memphis, where they all think they have the best barbecue. Man, they're wrong. They just don't brag about it here in KC. But It's incredible. Yeah.
Okay. All right. When you are there, we gotta. Well, I always like to say I want to travel, but it's difficult now with COVID and everything. Although, I guess that's a nice segue into this episode, as we're going to do a year in review of Guns N' Roses, on this Guns N' Roses themed flavored podcast, and also whatever we want to share about your book. I guess as far as the teaser. Because fingers crossed, maybe next year. We hope.
Oh, no question, next year, Brando. Come on, dude, we're so close.
I got some work to do. Oh, we'll talk about that. So
you know what ends up happening. You know this, but they don't. Is we end up doing stuff, and it's like, wait a second, there's so much more, right? There's so much more to talk about. So here we go. Yeah, some point we got it. So it's to use Axel's line, right? When will it be out, Brando?
Oh, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
That's right.
Actually, you and the AFD audience, the Bad Apples, will appreciate this. So we're recording this. I'm going to release it. I mean, if not today, tomorrow, but I'm recording this the day after Christmas.
Yes, sir.
So Merry Christmas. I know you're half, right? I don't know how you.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, when you've got the Goldstein side, you still celebrate the Christmas, so you get presents on both days, right? So, on both holidays. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just joking with, as I'm filling in this past week and this coming week on QN043 as the producer, and there's a lot of rock and roll Christmas music, and I'm telling the jocks there that I used to be, as a child, I didn't want to be Jewish. I'm like, everything is Christmas. Like I was so
right. No kidding. Yeah.
Now, obviously, I know it's not a big deal, but yesterday I had a real Jewish Christmas. I got two of my brothers where I came to my apartment, and we had Chinese food.
There you go. Very well. Very good. Did you have the Hanukkah bush?
We have growing up, we did. Growing up, we had a Hanukkah bush. We have a little Christmas tree in my apartment, decorating just for.
There you go.
So, Merry Christmas, happy. I appreciate those who reached out to me privately. So let me just say that at the beginning, the end of this year. But let's kind of go back to the beginning of the year, if we can remember.
Right.
And I was looking back, and maybe it's just a one-off question. Maybe you have a story, maybe you don't. Because the first interview of the year was with Mark Ford formerly of the Black Crowes.
Yeah.
If you want to listen to all 20 of 2021 episodes, start there. I think it's episode like 3.
Right.
Early 2s. What's funny about that episode is I know he's been asked about auditioning for Guns N' Roses a lot. He's been asked that throughout his career. And I do my best not to ask the same questions all the time, because especially as somebody who works in radio, who sees the other side of it, you want to come up with something original. Do your best. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, which I'm not. So I just asked him if he had ever played that in the time of COVID. Does he ever play that what if game? Does he ever think back on his life? What if I joined Guns N' Roses instead of the Black Crowes? No, it's everything worked out great. He joined the Juju Hounds. Everything was great. The very next episode he does, and shout out to State of America, a Black Crowes podcast. They interviewed Mark Ford, and he said he auditioned a second time, and that went viral. I don't know why he didn't say it on my show, like GN'R. Whatever, it's good for them.
Yeah, right.
You remember anything about Mark Ford auditioning?
Nothing. No, I really don't. Really don't. Yeah, I mean, I know Mark from the Black Crowes days because I was going to manage them until Niven said we're too busy with Great White, Guns N' Roses. Okay, fair enough. But the cool thing is, and I don't know if I mentioned this before or not, but I was getting calls from Rich and Chris every day, and you would have thought that they were calling because they love Slash. Not at all. They were huge Izzy fans, loved Izzy Stradlin. That's all they wanted to talk about. And so that's why they wanted me in particular to manage them. But it was Niven's company and he said no. So, okay.
That's interesting to know. That's not in the book. We didn't talk about that yet in the book. All right. Do we put that in now since we already said it?
Sure, yeah, we already said it here.
Yeah. Then also, since it's fresh in my mind, it was the last episode with Dave Navarro, and I appreciate all the wonderful responses. I got with this guest, I get lucky sometimes. Sometimes you get an email opportunity. Just I don't know. It was overly easy as far as all the difficulties I get with interviews. It was just crazy, and it was a very important conversation about mental health and addiction. That was the primary reason for the interview. But we did talk about Guns N' Roses, of course, which did lend itself to mental health, saying that when he auditioned for GN'R, and I don't know, again, if you have stories about this or not, that he was not mentally there. He missed an audition. He said after Izzy, Axl was on the phone with me every day, really wanted me in the band. We're talking about
very much so.
So who brought? I guess it was you though that brought in Dave.
Yeah, it was me that brought him in through his manager. Axl asked me to contact him. Rianne, my assistant, who I still love, adore. She's my life. I mean, she protected me. She, worked hard with the band. She knew everybody in the band personally very well. She would run errands where she's going up to the guys' houses. I mean, she's just an incredible person. And she literally worked for, probably 15 years managing on her own Kat Von D. Just separated with Kat to do something else. But anyway, I love Rianne. She used to be married to Dave. I didn't play that card because I thought they're not married anymore. Probably not a fair thing to do. But contacted Dave through the manager and ended up speaking to Dave personally. And just a super nice guy. Axl had turned me on to Jane's Addiction years before, saying, you and I are going to go see the best live band you'll ever see. And I didn't know anything about Jane's at the time. And so we went to Irvine Meadows, him and I together, and watched them. And they were arguably the best live band I've seen in terms of actual performance, not necessarily production. Production, I would have to say Queen and or Journey in the early days. They just outdid everybody. But so yeah, I didn't know much about Dave not showing up. I knew that again, the pushback was from Slash. I'm not going to work with him. He's a lead guitar player. I'm not going to split leads with the guy. No way. I don't know if you know, Brando, why Dave would have had a conversation with you about things from the past affecting him mentally. Do you know anything about his story?
Oh, yeah, we spoke about that. And he's been obviously very vocal about it, his mom being murdered basically in front of him. I mean, that's
in front of him. He was in the closet. Yeah, he was in the closet when she got murdered in front of him.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you go, I can't either. And that's why right off the bat, I had to talk about it. We were talking about mental health. And I'm like, since we know your story, I would like, and I'm asking you about your story. And this goes back to not wanting to ask the same amount of questions. I'm like, look, my dad took his life 8 years ago. I was basically suicidal throughout my 20s, not just wanting to be here. And I felt that opened up. He was opened at the beginning, but him and Billy Morrison, they're like, okay, this is somebody who he cares about what we have to say in this topic. So I think that's why, they didn't mind talking about Guns N' Roses at the end. Some people were just like, a Guns N' Roses podcast. They get
right. Well, I won't mention his last name, but one of my best friends, got him Andrew, just a sweet man. Sweet man, just a very good friend. But his father blew his brains out right in front of him and his brother. How do you ever, forget that ever the rest of your life? And, it is certainly shaped who Andrew is. How can it not, right? Doesn't define him by any stretch, but he's just a wonderful, 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 wonderful man, and nobody should ever have to go through that, of course.
No, and that's what people need to also understand about your book that we are working on, is that we're talking about mental health with not just yourself, your family, band members, and it's not excusing behavior. It could be explaining, so we can just maybe finally really, really grasp mental health. And we've been making.
Well, you've heard me say this a number of times, Brando, but Uncle Joe has a heart condition. Aunt Mary has cancer. It's even Cousin John broke his arm, and everybody's, oh my God, poor Cousin John, he broke his arm. Or shit, Tony's got a hangnail. Right? Oh my Lord, how bad is it? But you mentioned mental illness, and people run. And one of my bucket list things is to kind of change that and to just embrace it as what it is. It is a mental illness. It's like cancer or anything else. It's not something that you're born with. And those deep, dark lulls in people's lives, those are things that we need to be there and support one another and love each other through them, in my humble opinion.
Dave said something that I know applies to you and me and Axel. It's like you think the next thing is going to fix it. Once I get rich, once I find once I reach fame, and it's just never enough. Once it's drugs, and I had that on a lower level. Once I get full time in radio, once I get this, and it's just like I keep grasping. Now I'm just trying to live through years of therapy, live through the moment. So it was nice to hear Dave. He's talking about therapy. It's not fixing any of us. It's a daily thing. I don't think human beings can ever be quote unquote fixed. Just you do your best.
For me personally, I was a workaholic my whole life. Still am to a great extent. I mean, I still am, right? But my perspective has changed. I realized after the Guns N' Roses thing that all I was doing my entire life was trying to keep people away from me by building wealth. If I could accumulate enough wealth, right, then I would be able to build this wall around me that was impenetrable. I'd have to have people answering phone calls for me, and so it was a way for me to buffer myself from the outside world. Didn't work. And it was certainly nothing that I had considered doing. It was just, in retrospect, looking back, absolutely what I was doing. No question. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm a workaholic for a different reason now. But for the entire time that I was with GN'R and years prior, I was a workaholic just to keep people at arm's length, if you will. I never let anybody really close to me. I didn't let anybody close to me until Sandy. Really. I mean, nobody's ever really seen the real heart of Doug until Sandy. And she just kind of broke it down through love, quite honestly.
If I had the sound bites, I would cue the full house. Oh, sorry. I think you were saying something. You see, that's my deflection. I still have defense mechanisms despite all my therapy.
I do as well. I throw, if it gets too romantic, I have to throw a joke in.
I'm so bad with that. I really am. But yeah, we still talk about these serious topics on this Guns N' Roses themed podcast. But where I'm obviously glad, and I've learned a lot about your life. We have a little bit through the podcast as well, how far you've come. Me, I look back and I told Dave Navarro this and Billy Morrison, this silly little GN'R podcast has helped me. I was burying myself in work, as long as I can keep, I'm always busy doing something with work. I'm not thinking about other things.
Sure.
But now I'm using it as an outlet to connect with people like you and to connect with people in the Guns N' Roses world, which I never even thought was possible. So to kind of gear it back to this year in review thing, I never thought that I would be traveling. I mean, it wasn't that far. I went to Hershey Park. I went to Baltimore, New Jersey, which is not much traveling for me here in Queens. But with the girl to see Guns N' Roses, that was such a foreign concept to me at one point. But yes, this year, I've never.
Did they play the same raceway in Hershey Park that we played in '91 ish?
I don't think so. I should have.
Okay. Do you remember the venue at Hershey?
At Hershey Park, I should, if I was an actual good. Oh, it was right by. Well, I mean, it was right by Hershey Park, but I should say.
So was it a race? Was it a raceway or was it a stadium?
Oh man, it was not a great looking stadium.
This could have been the same place then.
All right, let me see. So Hershey, this is why I need. This is why the podcast needs to continue to grow, and hopefully earn money, so I can hire a producer to do these things.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, cool it. Show it up.
Stadium, Hershey Park Stadium. I can tell you the address right now. Just what do you need to know about it as it brings up Wikipedia?
It's not an old racetrack, or it is, or what?
You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this since we're so professional. End of the year, I want to share my screen with you.
Share the screen. Here we go. Let's see.
Right.
Take a look here. Pinch out for a bigger view. Let's see here.
Presidential Raceway. Oh, race campaign.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So it was the same place.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool.
So, I mean, it was an interesting place to be, especially experience. It was my first concert since the pandemic.
Right.
You know, that was it. So the experience, seeing concert.
Oh, by the way, one for the book. You got to remind me about Phil Mickelson. Sorry.
Okay. All right. If I don't remember, what am I
We
listening?
have to talk about it. It's a good story.
Okay. There's always a lot of those where it's not necessarily this like 100-page chapter, but it's like this story you got to put in there. It's
a great story. Yeah.
So. I keep teasing it, and people are like, "I want to read it already." All right, take time. So yeah, we went to the Hershey Park, which was an experience.
Yeah.
You know, my first concert, many people's first concert since COVID, but it was fun. We did. That's when I started doing concert reviews. So that's something we're going to continue in the new year, assuming concerts are continuing somewhat. But so I've gotten offers from listeners from the UK or from Scotland or Australia. So wherever they tour, you know, that was the first time. And it was also, again, very cool to experience that with my fiance, we at this time I had to explain to her, but you'll think about what you want your answer to be. I'm like, they might play a new song. We don't know what it's going to be. We were thinking it was going to be, I think at that time we were thinking it was going to be absurd. We didn't know what absurd was, right? So maybe that's kind of the thing. They didn't play it. If you want to go back and watch the review, listen to the review, you know, we talk about how Axl looked like he was having technical problems.
Right.
You know,
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
You know, looking angrily off the stage, but like a pro, this didn't quit, didn't throw a
Good.
You know, battled through. And we'll talk about your opinion of this tour compared to some of the ones that you've worked on. I don't know if there are comparisons, but you
there are comparisons. Seeing Axl smile leads me to believe that he's worked on himself differently than when I was working with him. He wasn't really having any fun when we toured, none, zero. And it kind of manifested in, you know, the ways that it did during the tours that I worked with him. But now I see him and it's in a completely different light, and it makes me happy. You know, it makes my heart feel good. I love the guy, as you know, Brandon. I always will. You know, he was my little brother for all intents and purposes. And so to see him actually having a good time is something that he cares a lot about. I think is great. And you know what? We should actually mention Ron Anderson and his passing. It's affected the lives of many people in our industry. Ron was Axl's vocal coach for, I think he was hired before I was. And I was hired, as you know, in '87. I knew Ron from working with Russell Hitchcock of Air Supply. And Ron was with Chris Cornell and the Avenged Sevenfold guys and The Weeknd and on and on and on and on and on. And he just passed of natural causes at age 70, I think 2 or 5, somewhere in there. But just a wonderful, wonderful man. I mean, he used to sing himself in front of kings and queens all over the world as an operatic singer. But just a wonderful, wonderful man. And I know that Axl is sad about his passing, as am I, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
I know you, and I appreciate that because I guess I want to ask a little bit more about that. Because I know you posted something on Facebook. Axel tweeted something.
Yeah.
I guess how would that work with a vocal coach? Does he come and they go into their own little like a room? Like, are you there? Is it just them? Like, how does that work?
No, yeah, he would work with Axel privately in Axel's room prior to, so he would do the vocal warm-ups with him, right? He built Axel's vocal tape, which is what he, for the times that he's not there, but he would come out on tour with us quite often on Use Your Illusion, quite often. I don't know about the Not in This Lifetime. I just, I don't have that information. Right. But I do know, I called him at the beginning of the reunion tour and I just said, how's he doing? Right. And he said, Doug, honest to God, he's singing better than he ever has. And I also had heard that they had reached out to have him. I heard through his assistant, Pipe Perez, that Betta had reached out saying Axel would like him to come visit, and Ron was in ill health, and that's when Axel kind of found out that he was in ill health. He couldn't travel anymore, so yeah, I mean, the whole thing's really sad. He's just a good guy. Best hugs. He literally gives the best hugs of any person I'd ever met in my life.
Yeah, it was something to see the amount of people that, because yeah, he may not be the marquee name that you know about if you're the average rock fan. And yeah, doing this podcast, I heard the name. I believe he did work on the Axel DC tour. The AC/DC with Axel.
He did. Yeah, he did. Yep.
So you hear things like that, but then you mentioned The Weeknd and just the list. It's like he was just wow.
The guy. Yeah. There's a guy named Seth Riggs, and Seth is famous because he worked with Michael Jackson. And so people say, Seth's the greatest vocal coach. Not if you really look at the body of work. If you look at the body of work, then Ron Anderson is the greatest vocal coach ever.
Yeah, I don't know how you beat the speaking. I'm not going to call it that Wikipedia page right now, but if you look up that resume, you can't beat it.
It's crazy huge. Yeah, crazy. Taylor Swift, even Tom Cruise, my buddy Tom Cruise that I hate. Even worked with Tom Cruise. What, Tom Cruise singing? Oh, you know what? I know one that's great. When Clinton was running for the second term, I don't know. There's some people that may remember this a long time ago, right? But he was on a trip on a train, stopping at locations throughout the country, and he blew out his pipes. And so Ron was the guy who went out and traveled with Clinton on that campaign. I mean, does it get any better than that as far as accolades go? I mean,
wow. The thing that
calling from the office of the president. Yeah,
I thought you were gonna be like, it's some unreleased Bill Clinton sax album or something, but no,
right.
It makes sense.
Oh, you said Bill Clinton and sax in the same line. Careful, Brett.
I believe in premarital sax. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, seeing Axel smile, that was the big takeaway from it. Even during those, which we all get those frustrating moments when something doesn't go right, and so I don't even blame. It's just kind of calling play by play. It's not even criticizing anyone for that. And
right.
If anything, I just feel maybe that delayed us hearing a new song for the first time. So when Absurd debuted, I believe at Fenway Park, I would love to have gone to Fenway Park, but as a Yankee fan, I still feel like it would smell me out. And just,
traitor.
So then let me ask, you knew of Silkworms. That was during your time still, yeah?
Yeah.
So what did you think? Because that was obviously a very different song. I don't need to go over my thought, because I have already my thoughts about it. I only heard the live version and maybe the recorded version, the leaked version once. And now it became Absurd with, and you saw that name on a leaked set list. Who's leaking these things? I don't know.
Right.
Doug doesn't.
Oh, it's Rick Dunsford again.
Oh yeah,
that's my buddy Rick.
That was one of the episodes we did this year. If you want to watch, if you want to go there, so Rick and I, we did an episode called "Don't Ban Me," like "Don't Damn Me," but don't ban me.
How about you need to do a follow up called "Don't Beat Me, Gio."
Oh God, yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
that's a whole other fiasco.
Yeah.
So what did you know of Silkworms, and when did you hear Absurd? And if you want to share an opinion on it,
I mean, my only opinion is, as a fan, I would want to hear brand new music by Axl, Slash, and Duff, not something that had been released before and Duff and Slash contributed parts. I mean, you're asking people to spend a lot of money to come see your live show. Give them something new, man. How hard is it, right, to get everybody together in a studio and create new music? I mean, look, Slash and Duff and Axl are great songwriters. If you got to bring Izzy back, right? I mean, everybody thinks that Izzy is the great songwriter. I mean, I have a different opinion. I think they all write great songs, but I mean, whatever it takes. I just think when you're charging the astronomical sums of money that they are charging for tickets, give the fans something new. I mean, that's my opinion. And it's Hard School and Absurd were really songs that are kind of Chinese, well, not kind of, very Chinese democracy, as opposed to Appetite or Use Your Illusion. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying, as an original Appetite, Use Your Illusion fan, I'm pining for music that's more closely aligned with what they had done in their kind of earlier stuff.
So then, I guess, again, in your opinion, which it put both of us in.
It's an opinion, just an opinion.
It's going to reflect to them, whatever. I'm already in their doghouse. You're in their. I don't know. It's I've tried to reach out and listen to all the episodes of Mental Health, Team Brazil. You know, I'm a good person. I just ask these questions because that's what I do. So what do you? I guess what's your thought on, Axl? When I was there, when he's like, this song is going to be released at midnight, streaming, and then there's no real there's no press release. There was
no press release with their. I mean, I've told you already. There's no press release. Well, there was a press release, but it was a paragraph long on the announcement of the reunion. I mean, I'm aghast at something like that. You build a huge campaign around it. And it's funny. I actually had a dream last night. I just remembered. I had a dream last night that I walked in through these cubicles in some office space, and there was Betta, and she was looking at me. She was all pissed off. And I said, what's wrong? Why are you mad at me? And she said, you know exactly why I'm mad at you. And I said, what? And she said, you never should have said anything without checking with me first. And I was like, shit, I'm sorry, right? And so I don't know if that was precursor knowing that I was going to talk to you today, but yeah, I literally had that dream, and I don't dream. I don't dream. If I do, I don't remember. But it was really kind of funny that in retrospect, yeah.
We've had those nightmares.
St. Louis. That's for me and Fortis.
By the way, who's underneath your hat, by the way, on the brim?
Arredondo. Yeah. It was or Arenado. Yeah. He plays the cards.
Yeah. Jake Arenado?
Yeah.
Oh, he used to play for I remember him as a Cub for some reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Big cards guy now.
All right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But this is for me and Fortis. Fortis lives there, and I used to. So. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good segue, because Fortis just did an interview where, and I'll have to mention another Slash interview, and these again, you're in review wrap up, so these are 2021 relevant. Mm-hmm. They're asked about new music. Fortis just basically gives I don't even know, whatever. He's talking like there's nothing of substance again, nothing. And I don't blame the guy. When I interviewed him a few years ago, I knew to not ask those questions, and it felt like even when I asked about touring or his favorite song, it felt like I was walking on landmines, kind of.
Well, you got to realize, I mean, Richard's been there longer than Slash and Duff. But absolutely, over 20 years. He's been with the Axl over 20 years.
And I guess, and same thing with Dizzy's thing with him that long. That's why they don't say a lot.
That's right. Yep.
So when Slash came out, and I remember Matt Wake being like, Brandon, I never see you this angry. But when Slash came out in an interview, I forget what he was promoting, because he still promotes stuff.
He does.
That he's like, we have still yet to be in a room together to work on new music. Like he has some of this old stuff that we're adding parts to, which we all knew. And I'm like, you've been together for 5 years,
right? Exactly.
in a room together like that. So,
well, yeah, it's funny you say that because while we were on the road with Use Your Illusion, everybody had the ability to record in their own room, DAT machines, and recording equipment. We wheel in all of this kind of mobile studio stuff into their rooms, and they would write. That being said, I don't know what happened to all that stuff, because obviously Use Your Illusion was already out. But yeah, all of them were working on different stuff while we were on the road. Everybody. I mean, well, Slash, Duff, and Axl were.
So it lends itself to, Axl's in a good place. He's smiling, and the tour is going well. And Slash has said this, they didn't expect this to go past their first few shows.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a theory, an opinion? Again, much to the dismay of expressing that opinion to some people, but about why they haven't gotten into a room over these, especially with COVID. You think
I don't have any opinion about it. I don't know why. Again, from a manager's perspective, I certainly would have brought it up. Just like I did with, T-shirts. We're not going to be going for the very best deal every time, because, the T-shirt prices are going up, and the stock of the T-shirts are going to crap, and they're not going to last forever. And I mean, it's, you as a manager, you have a responsibility to tell the band what's in their best interest. And 95% of the time they get it and they understand and they go with it. 5% of the time, maybe they don't, but usually they do. And I just, I don't want to, I always end up going back to Team Brazil, but the fact is I could not get the band back together. They have. Right. And so I have to give that caveat always. Fernando and Betta were able to do something that I was unable to do. So I give them accolades for that. But, I mentioned to Betta ages ago that I would do it for free. I would come in as a consultant and help for free. And I was very serious about that. I still am, because they just, God bless them, but they just don't know certain things to do as management. And it's not their fault. They've never managed a band before. Getting a guy to the stage that's one thing. Getting them all together is another thing. But you have a responsibility to the band to tell them what's in their best interest to do. And I don't think that's done. And I think it's not done for fear of things imploding. They're afraid to hear, why did you bring that up, F you, or whatever the case. I just think, keep it on the tracks, keep it on the rails. Everybody's making a ton of money in the stadiums. And so don't upset the apple cart. And that's really what I see. So.
And I agree with that too. And I've said before, I couldn't manage Guns N' Roses. I mean, I couldn't do that. I mean, I have enough stress and anxiety in my normal life to take that on. I mean, I is something, a task I couldn't even begin to even grasp. So that's, I'm not taking
it's really funny. It's really funny, Brando. My current boss, he was saying the other day, you need a work-life balance, Doug. I mean, otherwise you're going to burn out. And I'm thinking, does he know what I did for a living? It's like,
right. That's so
the ability to compartmentalize is something that I figured out years. I mean, when I was, 8 years old or something like that. So, it's, this is not stress what I'm currently doing.
Yeah. Again, stuff that people will read later on, but a lot of stuff you've already said in the podcast. But to imagine, just think about being the manager during the Use Your Illusion tour. Do you really need to specify anything else?
No.
Exactly. So I just always want to stress that, where I question what they may do. I'm not saying I could do a better job. I don't know. Just hoping maybe in 2021, we're getting that Hard School EP with Absurd and Hard School on it and a couple of live tracks. And it's nice, but again, the communication factor, I think is lost. So it's that bothers some folks. But I will get to some positive stuff. I don't want this to be all negative, but I guess that we're all
right. And like I said, and again, you know what? God bless Betta and Fernando, because they were able to put them back together. It's something I couldn't do. So, you know what? There's positives and negatives. I just think that I would have worked really well in tandem with Betta and Fernando, in the best interest of the band. You know, I think that there's some issues that that exist between particularly Slash and myself, that wouldn't allow that to happen.
Well, hopefully the book clears up some stuff.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
It'll make it either better or worse, won't it?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. But also, let me share the screen again and get your expertise opinion on this.
Okay. I am on my phone, so
that's okay. Well, you brought it up earlier, and you see my entire desktop. The Guns N' Roses tour, they had a reschedule in Arizona, in Australia, and I think NME first broke the story, and so it kind of explained it to me that they were able to receive like basically $600,000.
Yeah.
And it's not just them; there were other large organizations. Explain this to me, because it's not like Axl's pocketing the money. I mean, like, what does this mean?
No, but it's there are deferring costs that have already been taken on by Guns N' Roses, and by using monies that were originally for Australian artists, and I think that's why the Australian artists were pissed off about it. Basically, Australia and Canada in particular, those are the ones that really come to mind off the top of my head. They have these art funds, or where they give money to local art, and certainly music is listed amongst the arts, of course. And so there's large sums of money, and in Canada, I love how it works, because you have to be a Canadian citizen to receive any of that. In this situation, it's anyone who is playing in that particular country has access to those funds. I just think, you know what, you're talking about a band that made $1 billion on the Not in This Lifetime tour, and for them to actually take that money on, I don't know, man. It's
okay.
I'd had a really hard time as the manager letting that happen. But look, I was very different. Whenever we'd have something happen, like a riot, I would pay all the vendors for their lost time and their lost gear, and I would pay the salaries of the employees but I always went to the band with it and just said, I don't think this is anybody else's fault. I think this is something that we should do, and they always agreed. And in this situation, I'm certain I would have gone back to them and just said the same thing. You know what, this fund is meant for starting artists in Australia, and I don't know that it's really fair of us to take this on. But that was my first reaction when I saw that.
Okay, because I do my best not to read into salacious headlines, many of which I somehow create, no fault of my own. But so I didn't know the amount of cost of them having to cancel and reschedule. And yes, Axl and I don't want to say it's Axl, but the band made so much money over this reunion tour. And is that cost worthy to go back into that, use their savings? I guess they can do that. It's not like it's
more importantly, I don't see how there's any way, shape, or form they could have spent $600,000 the band's money at this point in time. So I don't understand the rescheduling amount of $600,000, how that was justifiable. There's not, look, if you cancel hotel rooms and flights, you redo them, right? Because they are going back at some point. So there wasn't any, losing money that I can see. I think that's some creative accountant working on behalf of the band, who, I don't know. they didn't send their production there, to the best of my knowledge. And even if they did, it wouldn't have been $600,000 to get their production there and back.
And it would never be like, like sponsors saying we were banking on this happening. We were banking on Guns N' Roses going to be here in Australia, that our business.
But they rescheduled.
Yeah, so they're going to make it up anyway.
Basically. Well, no, but more importantly, they have a longer time period as a sponsor to advertise the sponsorship. Okay. So it's, they're not being hurt whatsoever. They're actually gaining from the reschedule.
Okay. All right, just trying to think outside the box, because it did upset a lot of people and a lot of Australian artists. So you're curious. I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon and being like bad, but it makes you go, as that quote used to go. Things that make you go,
Yeah. I mean, that's enough on that.
So I obviously did not go on quote unquote tour as long as you did, but this was my longest Guns N' Roses tour this year, as I went to 3 shows. First one in Hershey Park, as we mentioned, then kind of near my home base in New Jersey, and the last one was in Baltimore. And that's when they debuted Hard School live. So, yeah, do you remember? I don't know if you mentioned before, I know you knew of Silkworms, and do you remember what Hard School was? And I spoke to Josh Freeze about it, because maybe he was on it and he doesn't recall that song. So does it sound familiar to you at all?
Yeah, the song sounded familiar. I just don't remember what it was. But yeah, the song sounded familiar. Yeah. I mean, I had heard all the stuff on Chinese, right? I don't remember what the working title was on that one.
Because I think that was rumored to be, if I can think back to the rumors of what could have been on that Jackie Chan movie, because there was around there was an interview with Duff. He was on Howard Stern, and Howard's like, "What the fuck's Axl doing? Get the band back together." They're on something. He's like, "Oh, we're working on a song right now for a Jackie Chan movie," and there was a Jackie Chan song.
Well, there was a song called Jackie Chan.
Right, one of the song leaks, but not an official release.
Right.
Which also, again, do you like that idea of, hey, which I kind of did. Axl's like, "Hey, at midnight, this song is going to be released on streaming services." I kind of like that. I just came out of nowhere, or is that like?
I'd like it a lot better if it was new material.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, we're releasing Welcome to the Jungle at midnight. What? We already know it. What are you talking about? I mean, or we're releasing something off of Duff's solo record. Dude, what? I mean, yeah, but Axl sang on it and Slash played on it. What? Or something of Slash's, right? We're taking something off of his first release and Axl singing. I mean, dude, no, sorry. Give him something new, man. Crap.
I guess I'm desperate. I just want something new. I don't know.
Maybe that's what they're counting on as well.
Give me more, sir, please.
That's right. Just a wafer thin mint.
But regardless, this is still all these fun things we can talk about, because at the end of the day, no one's losing their lives. This isn't like government funded.
And I feel like I'm bashing, and I don't mean to bash. It's just it's if asked the question, I vocalize my opinion, as but it's just it's
we got to talk about it. Otherwise, what are we doing? We talk enough off the air about other things. This is like, we got to look back in the year in review, where Guns N' Roses, for lack of a better word, released new music for the first time since Chinese Democracy. Although I don't know if Rock the Rock counts, the song that Axl sang for Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
Did I ever talk about that, by the way? Did you see Axl on Looney Tunes and Scooby Doo?
Yeah.
That's it. Should I just leave it at that?
Yeah.
I liked it too. I liked it, but okay, fine. All right. So, that's great. So that happened. Obviously, I think Scooby Doo happened this year. So that's another thing. So there was a lot of things that happened. Again, the fun 3 shows. It was meeting fans. Again, shout out to Jade Trucker, who let me. I stayed in an Airbnb. Just because he was a listener of the podcast, and that's
Very cool.
The fans were wanting to meet up. And again, if I had the funds, I would have went to even more than 3 shows.
Yeah.
My fiance was like, "Yeah, let's go to another one."
Mm.
She's always down to go to a concert. So
right on.
As we look forward to next year, those rescheduled Aussie dates. I would love to have we'll figure out a good time zone for me to interview you guys, or it's
Yeah,
usually
right.
my nights, their mornings. So we'll have
Yeah,
fun with my Aussie mates.
yeah.
All right.
Jason Burke. That's who you want to interview. Jason
Yeah,
Burke.
Jason
Yeah.
Parker, one of the
He's a
names,
good dude. Yeah.
one of the many names that sticks out because I
Yeah.
never would have believed it. There are. I wish I could read off a bunch of names. Maybe I should have. If I had a producer, I would have had like a list of names or comments from the show as
Right.
received.
That's right. Yeah.
But there's a strong listening base in Australia. I never would have thought.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses podcast. Guns N' Roses, yes, of course. Why would you not have a big fan base?
Well, I mean, the band was puking huge in Australia. Still are. I mean, just
again,
huge.
For the podcast again to keep continuing into a new year.
Yeah.
Have listeners all over the world is pretty amazing to me.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So is there anything I guess you want to say about, because a lot of my focus has been on the book this year. It really has. I've let a lot of interviews, oddly enough, come to me, which is very strange. Dave Navarro kind of came, not him specifically, but that opportunity came to me. So because I've been focusing, it's a priority. I'm not just saying that. I say that to you on and off the air, Doug. It's a priority. So is there anything you want to say about the experience or things that we can look forward to, or I don't know, like what should we talk about? People want to know.
Oh. What, with the book?
Yeah, with like, is there anything we can talk about? We should talk about, or just
I don't know, man. I mean,
we
we can talk about how close we are. We're pretty. I think we're closer than just saying sometime next year. I mean,
that's just me being underselling. Because I normally do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm a firm believer that if I tell you to see Pulp Fiction 20 times, by the time you see it, you're going to go, what a disappointment. Because I talked about it. I talked about it too much.
I know. I'll do this as a fun, it may not be a fun visual, but we'll see. And again, another thing I focused on a lot this year was YouTube, because apparently you can make some money off YouTube, as people do, what I don't. But you could see 165 pages. That's what we have transcribed. Oh, there's some of Doug's words. Oh, we don't want to say it. We don't want to see it yet. This is 165 pages that I've put in our Zoom conversations.
Yeah.
One, and it's one word folder. It's my job to shape it and organize it. We're gonna have another recorded conversation I'm gonna have to transcribe after we're done with this episode. There's still a lot of work to be done, and also that work includes you, which we have. If you send an email to the afdshow@gmail.com, a question to Doug about the book, we're probably going to get it in the book, because sometimes you may ask a question that we're already going to address. But if it's kind of like a random one-off question, I think that's a great opportunity to get your name into a Guns N' Roses book.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Send them in, gang. We'll answer them all.
So I'm hoping. So what's to come, I guess, for next year with Guns N' Roses? Obviously, we never know.
Right.
We know that Hard School EP, and it's something that we would need to understand. And maybe you had thought about this. People are like, it's not coming out until like spring sometime, but that's not a typical Guns N' Roses delay. There's like a manufacturing delay, especially for vinyl. And apparently, like Adele delayed it even more because she had like 500,000 of her albums put on vinyl because people.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's why that's delayed. But GN'R is supposed to tour again. They're putting up Mexico dates, festival dates. So I can't believe this thing keeps going. And I guess our plan is I have a job. I don't know if I could do it, but is to do a book tour along with their tour, which they would.
Yeah. That's certainly the goal. Hey, let me ask you a question. What were the COVID protocols for the GN'R dates?
So they were apparently very, very strict.
Okay.
Legit, where I think Melissa did say that in a recent interview, and people couldn't go backstage. I know Ricky Rackman was kind of, I don't want to say complaining about it, was saying that I can't go backstage, or there were other people like Sebastian Bach, I can't go backstage. And however, what was interesting was there was a picture with Axl and his fan, an attractive girl. He wasn't wearing a mask. But I got to imagine there were protocols beforehand, but she was the one that put out the story that Hard School was going to be dropped soon, and it
Oh, wow.
turned out to be right. And there was a lot of fans like saying, you're a liar. This fans are insane sometimes.
Yes, don't I know.
But all intents and purposes, like when I interviewed the Velvet, so it's another episode that happened this year. The Velveteers from Colorado, which I finally visited this year, by the way.
Oh, cool.
So when Mammoth WVH, when somebody in their tour group got COVID or was exposed to, not Wolfgang, but somebody would offer maybe a show or two, they brought in the Velveteers. And on that episode, during that interview, they said how strict the COVID tests were and the protocol. And
so that speaks to the band, but what about the fans? Were they tested? You have to have a negative test to come in, any of that, like the Stones were doing?
No, the shows I went to, I mean, they were metal detectors. There was definitely one at Hershey Park.
Right.
They were.
I'm sorry, did you say mental detectors?
I don't know if I would have passed. Metal.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, how'd you get in?
No, exactly. But there weren't a lot of people in Hershey Park wearing masks. There were more in Jersey, some in Baltimore, so they were better. But not. I mean, the rules have changed since through. What is it? Optimus Prime, Omicron, whatever it's called at this point. Like in New York, you can't. Like to see Ghostbusters in a movie theater, I had to wear a mask. That's how it is now.
Right. Well, see, Jake, my son, right, has the band Honey, and every one of their shows, you had to show a negative test within the past 72 hours or proof of vaccination, or you didn't come in. And that's exactly what the Stones were doing. I just wondered if they were doing the same thing with GN'R or not.
The Foo Fighters did. They even canceled some dates that where the venue would not comply. Guns N' Roses not. I think that was up to them. They would have a protocol, masks, distancing, and obviously we're not very enforced.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just wondering. I don't want to come down on them. I was just wondering what their stance was. So.
Sure. I mean, I guess they played both sides. We're not trying because it obviously did upset a lot of fans because that's a whole other conversation about masks and other things that we don't need to get into. But who knows what they do for this coming year? They may because again their backstage was very, very strict. And it was interesting that, they said it was food poisoning. Where Axl got sick. I think it was in Fenway Park. They said he threw up. Melissa Reese also said she got sick, but they battled through shows. I mean, they absolutely battled through, and my hats off to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think it was. I don't think they were hiding that they had COVID. It would have been something more publicized. Serious.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But they were one of the very few bands to make it through 2021. Success. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
But imagine that. I'm talking to the former manager of Guns N' Roses from the Use Your Illusion tour. Canceled dates, riots, last shows. Here we are in 2021. Guns N' Roses, the only band to successfully complete a tour. No issue.
Yeah, with no canceled dates.
Where are we?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. In an alternative universe.
So I'm definitely looking forward to again next year. I do hope I have to get a passport. My goal is to see a show in another country,
right?
Not counting Canada. I've seen Canada show in Canada already,
right?
Because I know especially talking to you about the book, all the shows you've seen around the world, and you talked about that you've missed out on because you were so focused on your job.
Are you kidding? I could have been in Greece or Georgia and not known the difference. I mean, my role was just crazy, laser focused. Yeah.
So I'm doing my best to enjoy it again with the podcast. We'll see what's to come. I'm really trying to make the priority the book. In addition to paying my bills with a regular radio job and preparing to get married in June.
Yeah, buddy.
I'll put it out there. Maybe Doug, you know somebody. If anybody knows a Guns N' Roses cover band that is also a Dave Matthews cover band, we would look.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'll get on the look for that. Yeah.
What's funny? She made the hashtag GN'R love DMB for when we always have to do a hashtag. So yeah. Guns N' Roses.
So they gotta do Welcome to Jungle and Blood in the Water.
Yes. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe there'll be a GNR a cover band out there that'll learn Trippin' Billies or something like that for us.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. And as far as guests, I don't know. I'm hoping to get your old buddy, Matt Sorum, back on the show because he was
Very
supposed
cool.
to in September about his book, but that got delayed. So that's been an interesting thing. I know you have a lot.
Watching who Matt Sorum has become is one of the greatest things. It's like watching who Duff's become, and Axel. I mean, Slash, I just don't have enough information on, but Matt, watching how, I don't know, just socially aware and responsible he is at this point in his life, and that's even before fatherhood. And I'm so happy for him, having a child and a healthy wife, healthy baby. I just think he's going to be just the best father. And so, yeah, I would love to see Matt on your show. He has so much insight, on life and living. And so, he's really what an interesting metamorphosis of a human being. Just a wonderful, wonderful man. Wasn't necessarily my experience on the tour. We certainly, him and I went round and round, but I love Matt, and I'm just really happy for him as a human being. So
yeah, I like that. And when I did, it was at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mhm.
When I first came, I had to work from my apartment. I really didn't have much of a setup. And I interviewed Matt over speakerphone and recorded that into my laptop. So obviously very shitty quality.
Right.
I think I did an interview with you like that, but I was having fun with the atmosphere, feel
Right.
my quarantine,
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I hope to speak with him on the, Zoom like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And especially because it gave me a lot of ideas for our book, your book.
Mhm.
Because I was able to read a version of his book. I don't know, it'll
Right.
be the one that eventually comes out, but it was the PDF one of, this is get prepared for your interview. And I hadn't read, honestly, I'm not a huge reader, as I've said. I usually, like for interviews, I read a couple chapters just to get the gist.
Right.
I read the whole thing, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, but ours will be great. Ours will be great.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, Matt Sorum to come. We'll see, though. The best way, as I've always mentioned, to keep in contact with the podcast in between the broadcasts, for one, send us an email, not just a question for Doug, but the afdshow@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram, on Twitter. Something else that happened in 2021, my Twitter was suspended for sharing my own video of Absurd, at the concert. I'm hoping to get my Twitter follow. We're halfway back. We're halfway back to where we were. That's how you can be part of episodes. That's how you can be a part of the broadcast. Because it's
the machine squashed you. The machine squashed you.
I knew better. I poked the bear. That was my own.
Right. Yeah. So one thing I will say is I don't know what's going on in this. I don't know what's going on, but I've worked on every single release that the band's ever done. Every single video, album, you name it, and I've been told by the company that makes the Gold and Platinum records that, and I'm supposed to be able to get any of those things for the rest of my life, right? And now I'm being told that that's being challenged. They won't tell me who by, but it's either the label or management. And so that's kind of, it hurts my heart a little bit,
Well, it's I'm hoping that happens too, because it's hurt my heart too, for some decisions made by management, because I did not start this Guns N' Roses podcast 5 years ago or whatever to one day hope to, this is my path to interview Duff McKagan or Slash. This was a happy accident that I started with my buddy Ian, and along with my radio career, that it's just somehow manifested itself to this year working on Doug Goldstein's book. I met your friend Alan Niven this past summer, and his we bought me lunch. That was a special. I told you that story where if you missed it. So yeah, along that trip where we went to my fiance and I to Colorado and Utah, we stopped in Arizona or Phoenix, and I hit up Alan, and I mean I don't know how I've befriended you and Alan. And it's just, I'm just myself. I don't go out of my way to get into people's lives or to get anything from you. So Alan's like, yeah, just drive up to Prescott, you
Yeah.
know. And I had never been in Arizona before, and I had no idea how much the terrain was just.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful, but it's also not good for my stomach.
Oh,
Let me tell you this story.
no.
So if you, I mean, you'll laugh at it, hopefully whoever hadn't, you'll laugh at my expense. So I wasn't driving. My fiance's sister was driving.
Okay.
I mean, for the most part, if you're with a rented car, that's something else. As a handicapped person, something else. I got to stand up for handicapped people too at times when it presents.
Yeah.
You don't have handicapped cars readily available. It's usually just like hand grip and stuff, chains hooked up to the brakes and the gas. So if you push down for brake and pull up for gas, shift next to where the directionals are, if any of that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
sure.
It costs, I don't know, like it costs a few $100s. So yeah,
Wow.
places don't want to do it.
Right.
So it was not even my option to drive. So, and Shauna, it's not even just that Arizona is beautiful. She wants to go on the most scenic route.
Oh.
The most scenic route is obviously off-road.
Yeah, right.
Going like this windy road, like we're going up to The Shining. And I swear, like every 10 minutes, I'm like, we got to pull over.
Oh no, really?
Time I opened the door, I threw up all of my shoes. So I'm in the back, and I was like,
oh my gosh.
Like,
well, that's like, another problem. You shouldn't have been in the back.
Well, they moved.
If you're car sick, you sit in the front.
I learned that. I did learn that. Also, taking Dramamine was something else that I did.
There you go. Yeah.
So, and they all knew why we were going out of our way to Prescott.
Right.
Guns N' Roses friend. Whatever.
That's right.
You know. So we drive up there, and I'm throwing up every 10 minutes. Finally get there. We're late. Alan's like, I'm letting Alan know I'm not feeling well. He's like, all right, mate, and whatever his accent is.
Yeah.
He's with his wife, and he picked out a place for us to meet. We get to the parking lot, and my head's still. I felt like I'm drunk, and I haven't drank in 6 years.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, let me just get in there, go to the bathroom, sit down. I didn't even make it to the front door. I didn't want to throw up for whatever reason. I was like near the handicap parking, obviously.
Right.
I didn't want to park like on the car, so I did it like between the two spaces. But that made it right in the view of whoever was in the window.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was Alan and his wife. I feel a hand rubbing my back, and it wasn't my fiance, it was Alan Niven.
Oh
and
gosh.
Because I'm looking down, I see these snakeskin shoes. And
there you go.
Are you all right? And eventually go in. He's like, let's get you some water and food. And eventually color came back to my face and everything. And and look, we don't need to get into it because this will be a whole other episode. But I told Sean on the way up, I'm like, I'm trying to explain who he is.
Right.
And I shout out to all my listeners who say, thank you for being my only Guns N' Roses outlet. My friends don't understand. My wife doesn't understand. Even though Shauna tries to understand, at the end of the day, does she really care? About the drama.
Right. Yeah.
Doug Goldstein drama between Alan Niven.
Right. Yeah.
I'm working the book with you, so I'm explaining who Alan is. I'm like, they don't really get along. It depends on who you ask. All these things, but I like them both. Yeah. And just like while I'm eating my fries, taking some ginger ale, getting color back to my face, he just goes, so I hear you and Doug Goldstein don't get along. Then like the color goes out of my face again because I'm like, oh my God, you shouldn't have said that. To her, her defense, she didn't know she was not supposed to say that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Getting a lecture about whatever. I mean, I put it out to Alan. I've said, look, Doug says he loves you, and if you ever want to talk, he's there. So
that's right.
That's other than we talked about it, other than my concern about being completely banned from New Brazil and Guns N' Roses with the book. I don't want to lose Alan as a friend, but I mean, I'm telling you a story. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And Brando, you've heard me say this since day one, is I respect the fact that you don't choose sides between Alan and I. You can have a relationship with either of us. And from my perspective, and this, I don't care. I mean, I don't care. Your relationship with Alan is your relationship with Alan. It's different. It's not my relationship with Alan, right? I respect your right to have a relationship with him. And the fact remains that, I believe he's trying to recreate history to make himself look good. Take credit for what I've done, take credit for what others have done. Man, just recently I read where he's now saying that Welcome to the Jungle got played on MTV because of a letter he wrote. That's horseshit. He knows it. Everybody knows it. David Geffen called Tom Preston, who ran MTV, and asked for a personal favor, and that's why they played it on the overnight, and the phone system broke down, and all. It had nothing to do with Alan writing a freaking letter. But you know what? Along the same vein, Alan treated me incredible when he first brought me on. I mean, he wants to rewrite history and say that he didn't give me, but he did 50% of his company. There's certainly documentation that proves such, right? He told you that it was some peon pittance worth, and why?
I was like, I don't want to get into specifics about what we're talking about. It was just, but I think at the end of the day, he respected what you're saying. Where I'm not talking about him behind his back. I'm just like, Doug's telling me his story. He's good to me. You're telling me your story. You're good to me. And that's what I kind of put out on the podcast.
Right. Yeah. And again, but to go back, he was great to me in the time that I worked with him. And he should realize that because he was great to me, I didn't screw him in the way that he thinks I did. It was Axel that wanted to fire him for 2.5 years, and I kept him involved because he was my partner and because he was good to me. It was Axel's decision to get rid of him, not mine. And why he wants to put that on me is absolutely beyond me. But that's part of his rewriting of history. So he's certainly entitled to his opinion, and I respect that. But for me to not acknowledge how good he was to me would be really chicken shit of me. He was great to me.
That's why we get along too, and why I think this book is going to be great, because we're kind of simpatico with that. I can't believe I just used that word, but where we might,
I'll take it.
We might not like something someone has done, but we can appreciate what else they've done, and look at the whole thing. The thing as a whole.
Absolutely, the entire body of work, if you will.
So look forward to our entire body of work, which
that's right.
Sounds weird out of context, but 2022, yes, knock on wood. It's supposed to. Yes, that's going to happen.
That's right.
I have faith in myself.
That's right.
Yeah, it's already happening. I showed you proof of 100 and something pages already. And also, again, conversation continues on the podcast, on social media in between the podcasts, and especially if you have a guest suggestion. I always say that. Like an example, Rick Richards would not have been on the show this year, former guitarist of the Juju Hounds, if it wasn't for, a random person on Twitter, Izzy in Argentina, who kind of coordinated it. And that's a lot of these episodes have happened that way. So
Rick Richards, Georgia Satellites, right?
Yeah. Georgia Satellites. He was the one. It was interesting. I don't know if somebody on Ultimate Classic Rock saw that I interviewed Rick Richards, but I was waiting a few days to put it out, and then just put theirs out first, and broke the news that Izzy was in Colorado, because I broke the news. I put that clip up. Whatever. That's a whole thing. I broke a lot of news in 2021. I'll break more news, I'm sure, in 2022. Much to the dismay of management, I guess. Right. My favorite band. That's all I like doing.
Sure.
As everybody else does. So this podcast does not continue into the new year without all of you. So thank you to all.
Absolutely. Thank you to the fans. Yep. Everybody knows how I feel about the fans. Without fans, there is no Guns N' Roses.
There isn't.
Ever.
The book's going to say that obviously without the fans, there is no podcast. There is not. I'm sorry if this was just me talking to 5 of my Guns N' Roses fan friends. I'm kind of a loser, but I don't know if I can live up to. I can be doing that for like 5 years. Just talking about
right.
Same songs. Or
Change the subject, brother.
Yeah. And I appreciate all of you who have come along with me on this podcast, My Train, for another year. If there is an emergency interview of all of a sudden Axel's like, hey, I want to be interviewed by Brando on December 13th.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. So I guess I'll see you next year.
Yeah.
When are you gonna see the next episode? Who's the next guest gonna be? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.